Chapter 2, Section 1.6, Part 1. In this chapter, you will learn about linear regression. And linear regression is a technique that we'll use on the calculator to come up with equations based off points or tables from or points from tables. So, but it stems from word problems. And this little bit of section is going to help you in the previous sections because you will be able to write out a linear equation given 2 points. Your calculator will do it for you. Please make sure that you learn these steps. These are very valuable steps, as we will do regressions in other functions, and you'll need to know. So learn it now. All right, the first thing that we have is the population of a town in 1920 was 3,500 people. The town's population decreased linearly, and in 1929 the population was 3,185. So what we have to understand is what they have given us is 2 ordered pairs, and from 2 ordered pairs we can find the slope. And from the slope, we could take a slope and a point and use point-slope form to write the equation. Well, we can do what's called linear regression. But before we do that, it says find a formula of P, the town's population in terms of T, and the numbers since 1920. So this is kind of how I do mine. When they say T numbers since 1920, what they're doing is they're resetting the clock, meaning T equals 0 at 1920. All right, so really this is what your ordered pair becomes now. Zero would represent 1920. 9 would represent 9 years from 1920, which would be 1929. So whatever X value you get, you need to add that to 1920 in order to, in order to find, given an output, find an input, or if they give you a date, like let's say 1940, then you would know that the T, the input, would have to be 20 because from 1940 to down to 1920 is 20 years. So, let's do this real quick. We've got 2.0, 3,500, 9, and 3185. All right, so what I'm about to do is all calculator driven. Okay, so let's go to our calculator. Wherever we are at, we're going to hit second mode. Not second mode, quit, right? All right, so first things first, and I'm doing this off of TI-84 color edition. It's the same as a TI-83 and 84 period, but second plus. And what I want to do is I want to go clear all my list. So I hit number 4. What that does is it brings up a program called clear all list. It does not execute until I hit enter. When I hit enter, it says done. Now, what are lists? Well, if you hit this little stat button right here, it will come up and say edit, sort, clear, clear list. Now, that clear list is if you call out a specific list like a L1, L2, or L3. Now, so I don't use that one. I go back and I use second plus number 4. But if you have some lists that are not showing up, then you want to hit number 5 and then hit enter. What setup editor does is if you have deleted L1 or deleted L2, it will bring it back so you can see it. Okay, so that's what setup editor does. A very powerful thing. So now let's look at what we really need to do in terms of typing this in. Hit stat, enter. Okay, note that you have L1, L2, L3, L4, and L5. We're only going to use L1 and L2. The X's are going in for L1, and the Y's will go in for L2. Now, I've got my calculator set up on 4 decimals. 2 would be okay. And you may get just a slight different answer than me if you go 2. But anyway, just know that. All right, I've got my x's in L1 and my y's in L2. What I want to do is I want to go stat, arrow over to calculate. And what calculate does is it says, okay, now you're going to perform a function or an operation on these lists. And if you look down at number 4, it says LINREG. That's linear regression. Now, if you look down at number 8, that says LINREG, they are the same except for 4 has it in terms of y equals mx plus b, and 8 has it in terms of the y-intercept plus bx, right, or mx. I always use number 4, so hit number 4. And when you hit number 4, mine comes up as x list in L1, y list in L2. And what I do is I come down here. Okay, so we're going to store the regression equation. So we're going to store it in Y1. So the keystrokes for this is vars, arrow to the right, enter, enter. Okay, and then we're going to arrow down to calculate. All right, so if I hit calculate, your particular calculator may not come up with the R square and the R. Okay, mine does. But the only things that you're wanting is the A and the B. The A is the slope, as you can tell from the equation, and B is the y-intercept. So what we want to do is we go M equals -35, and B is 3,500. So that would be -35t plus 3,500. Now, that's just to create the equation, okay? Now, the really cool thing is this. Again, R squared and R may not come up on your calculator. Don't worry if it does. Don't worry if it doesn't. It's just a correlation, okay? I want to go to y equals. And if you see y equals, there's the equation. We stored it in there so that we don't have to ever type it again. And if you having problems going from the regression screen and writing the equation, all you have to do is go to Y1 and it'll have it for you. So just remember that. Now, from here, they could ask you an input question like, what was the population in 1932? Well, that would be an input of 12 because 1932 is 12 years from 1920. Or they could say, when would the population be 2000, which would be, here's an output, give me the year, right? And that year coming back would be a value that would be needing to be added to 1920. Okay, so because we reset the clock, we said t equals 0, so that it's pushed up against the y-axis and not setting out there in space at an x value of 1920 or 1930 and so forth. Okay. The next little thing I want to do is I want to go over, if you don't have an 84 that gives you the screen and stuff like that, I want to, let's see. With this, let me do it. Let me see. View. Let's just hit stat. 4. Yeah, it's going to do it. It ain't going to do what I need to do. Okay. So if you have one that's an 83 or so forth, when you hit on your, let me type this out. So second, no, wait. When you go to your stat and arrow over to calc and you hit number 4, it'll come in and it'll say LINREG up on your screen. Now at this time you could hit enter. Okay, only listen to this if you have an 83 or an 84 that doesn't show the screen that I have. Okay, it's very important that you pay attention. If not, skip through this, no big deal. If you do have it where it comes up and it says LINREG and that's the only thing that it comes up, you could hit enter. It would assume that the X list is in L1 and the Y list is in L2. It will not store it. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to, you need to hit this button. You need to hit second 1, and that will give you a L1. Then you need to hit a comma. Okay, what that is a button above number 7. That's the comma. Okay, let me show you where it is. It's right here. Okay, so let me get out of this so I can show you a little bit. Quit. All right, if you hit that, that's a comma. Okay, and then I want to hit second 2, which will give me an L2. Okay, and I want to hit a comma. Then I want to hit VARS, the VARS button, arrow to the right, and enter, enter. And what that brings up is Y1. Okay, so this should be what it looks like on your screen. At this time, you can hit enter, and it will calculate stored in Y1 for you. Okay, so that's kind of everything that you need to do for a linear regression. And so if you've got an 83 that doesn't show it, then those are the key strokes to do everything to get what I have up in here in blue. Okay. All right, so that's chapter 2, section 1.6, part 1.